Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in and joining me as I explore the amazing, incredible, fabulous wide world of pens. And you see one rotating, held up by a crab, and I think the light is playing well on this interesting designed Hongdian D1. They're kind of late to the skeleton over clear resin design. Let's see what they may have brought interesting and new. And we'll explore this pen. And yes, it was provided to me by Mr. Brittam at Asveen Pens. So let's jump in. And we're going to wait for Mr. Crab to give you a winky wink before we move on. He enjoys his job. It's a heavy pen. So what did Hongdian bring to the table with their version of a skeleton pen? Well, number one, it's a very shiny chrome. Shinier than the original Asveen. Well, this is not the original one. This is the original one here, which came in the gold color or the silver color. And I like the blue and silver combinations. It also came in other colors, green, silver, and gold. So there were a lot of variations on this theme with kind of this organic design, kind of a random pattern in the metal overlay. Here is a very distinct pattern, which I'm trying to identify. And of course, the Jinhao 100 also had their versions. And this is the hollow one in a matte black, which I really like. What I really think is missing from all of these designs is a dark chrome that I think would go well with this design and look good and distinguish it from all the rest of them. That's my wish. We'll see if anything happens. So my first approach with a new pen like this is generally these number 6 nibs all unscrew, and you have this nice nib assembly, O-ring down here at the bottom, O-ring at the top, seal it up very nicely. And that also gives you access inside to the piston. Put in a hypodermic syringe in there and flush it if you want to change inks. But we're also going to see if we can get more movement in the piston, as Hongdian seems to have a challenge in assembling these with maximum piston movement. So this ink called out to me. I haven't used it for many years. Bought a bunch of KWZ inks back many years ago when they were very popular. And yes, it's a nice, clean turquoise color. And that blue side of blue-green. And I got a fairly full fill. I did my up and down 3 times. And by weight, it's 1.7 milliliters of ink. That's a decent fill for this piston filling pen. So here's the bottle, and yes, you can see a plastic liner that I've cut up and put over the cap, because when I first tried to open this ink, I could not get the cap off no matter what I did. But the trick that's usually always worked is I run some hot water on the cap and get it in between the cap and the bottle, and the lid came off very easily. And I put this here and I wiped everything down, so hopefully next time I open it up, it's easier to open up. The first time I touched this nib to paper, I said, wow, incredible flow for an extra fine. And yes, there's a little bit of feedback, but extra fines generally do have more feedback than broader nibs. And I will do a little smoothing on the nib, but this is first writing. That KWZ turquoise ink really pops. And in this nib, it lays down a very nice line. Very, very pleased. Considering the price point on this pen, excellent nib. Well-made pen, great value. This is definitely a very interesting nib, quite different than any Hongdian nibs that I have. Here's that vertical line with no pressure, medium pressure, and as much pressure as I'm willing to put on it. It opens up quite nicely. It has a little bit of a bounce to it. And this was after smoothing, so it feels good on the paper. I'm impressed with what Hongdian's been able to do with this relatively inexpensive pen with an interesting nib that writes very well. So we're going to try to have the piston retract more so we'll get more volume when we fill the pen. I've removed the nib, just unscrewed it, and I'm going to use this rod to measure piston movement. Put a piece of tape there to indicate the piston all the way down. So we're going to push the piston up. There it is. We're going to bring in our trusted calipers and measure the movement. 20 millimeters. So hopefully we'll get more. I think we should at least get 24 or 25 millimeters if we do the adjustment properly, but this is also a way of testing piston movement if you had an opaque barrel. Yeah, I enjoyed doing little experiments like this. So we're in the process of removing the piston. You see how that Hongdian wrench fits into those slots. You tighten down the blind cap, and then you turn counterclockwise and you unscrew the piston assembly. As you see, it comes out and you see the distance here. So we're going to try to minimize that by bringing the piston up closer to the end cap before we screw it back together. It's a plastic piston assembly, so it's not high end like some of the metal ones that could be aluminum or brass. But let's work on this one and see what we can do, and be back in a bit. So I just removed the piston and tried to get it in as much as I could. This is an interesting design, very, very stable. So with the end cap all the way down, that's the distance. I'm not going to be able to get the piston all the way up. There's an opening there. It's a strange design piston because usually this big end piece would be flat because here's your piston rings up here. But let's put it back together again and see if we have now more distance traveled and drawing up more ink. Well, I didn't get any more travel because this blind cap stops when it touches the barrel, not the piston mechanism. So it's not the best design for a full fill because you saw the piston went further up. And we'll try another attempt, but I'm not real confident that we'll be able to get more fill. Well, I was able to do it by not screwing down all the way the top part of the piston mechanism. And here's our trusty measuring rod, and that's where, when the piston was fully up, that's where it was. So we'll go in this time and we'll see it goes in further, and as we take our fingers off, we'll see I gained that much. And I'm not good at judging distances, so let's bring out the calipers and measure. So we got about almost 5 or 6 more millimeters of distance, which is about 0.5 milliliters. So now it's time for some editorial comments and some dimensions. Here they are. Now, I was sent this pen by Asveen, Easy Buy, and I didn't know the price until I looked it up before this review, and I go, wow, it's on the lower end of a high-end Chinese piston filler with metal overlay. Very distinctive look, nice heavy weight. So if those are things that interest you, this is definitely a pen that should be on your list. So one of the things I didn't talk about was uncapping. Oh, just one turn. That's excellent. Jinhao, you should take notice of that. There's a nice little line here in the clip to give it some features. Top of the cap has that dove that's been around for a while from Hongdian. And it's Fortune de Lantian. I'll give you that right up. As Hongdian, LT Hongdian below the clip, and D1 on the other side. So that's really nice. I'm glad that they've consistently done that. So the section size-wise is okay. And it is a chrome section. It's a metal section. The balance is good in the hand. And as you may know from other pens, yes, it does post. It does change the balance. It's not something that I feel comfortable about, but if you need to post, you can post it and put the cap on the end of the barrel, but no, I don't do that. And it does fit securely. So that's the pen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little visual exploration and some of my commentary. I'm going to do a final writing and close it up. So one thing you'll notice is it still has a decent amount of feedback. I've reduced it a bit, maybe 20%. And I use this fingernail board, which I bought many years ago. And as you can see, it's been inked up many times because I usually smooth with an ink nib. Yeah, I do my figure eights, my back and forth. This is the coarse side, medium, and then this whole side here is a smoother, finer finishing. I don't use any finer micro mesh. I guess I could, but I have it. I just don't use it very often. So we've reached the conclusion of this video. I want to thank all of you for watching. This is a great color. I should use it more often. I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, enjoying holding them in your hand, touching nib to a surface, paper, vellum, whatever you use. Yes, spill some ink with your pen. So we've reached the end, and we will say bye. I will enjoy using this pen.